Yep, that is a streaming like it started. Excellent. Next, I just need to start the recording as well, and we can start. Yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and mute everyone, and then we'll start the talk. Okay, so it's a really interesting topic. It's in 5 parts. So what I'll be doing is I'll be kind of I'll just go to the first part, and then we'll have Q's and A's, and then we'll go second part Q's and A's, third part Q's and A's. So if you have any questions, just hold on to them until I can complete that one section, and then we'll have Q's and A's between each section. So probably every 10 minutes, we'll be having a few questions and answers. Okay. Let me just spotlight myself. Great. I got Mr. Xiao in the room as well. Mr. Xiao, very good. How are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I hear
Okay,
you.
good.
Today's topic is quite important. Today, the topic is cardio, how to do cardio. So uh, it'll be in 5 sections. So I'll just do one section and Q's and A's, next section Q's and A's. It'll be like that. So you're going to start very soon. We're starting more or less now. So I'm just going to start recording as well. All right. Okay, we're going to start now. But yeah, before I start, so, oh, we got Dimitro as well. Dimitro, hi, how are you?
Good morning, Dr. Vat. I'm good. How are you?
Good morning. So today we're talking about cardio and how to do cardio ideally. And I know some of you are doing cardio already, some of you are very active in sports, but yeah, I think this will be a learning experience for everyone. So let's start. Um, so today we'll be talking about optimal cardio, how to do this in 5 parts. Oh, actually, just got Sarah joining as well. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Good to see you today.
Doug.
All right. So today's topic is cardio, and I think we can start now. I got a bunch of people who've joined. Excellent. So today we're talking about cardio, how to do optimal cardio, and I've divided this into 5 parts. And so let's go through those 5 parts one by one. Okay. Now, this is the blog. The blog is called The Most Effective Way to Do Cardio Exercises in 5 Steps. So if you need to refresh anything, then just go on that blog. And it's not the kind of blog where I want to keep any particular suspense. I have put those 5 points at the very beginning of the blog right there in front of you. Number 1 is daily steps. Number 2 is zone 2 cardio, also called uh, steady state cardio. Number 3 is HIIT or high intensity interval training. Number 4 would be a hybrid kind of integration of those. And then number 5 would be combining that with your nutrition or calorie cycling. Those are the 5 steps. Let's go through them one by one. First thing is your step count. And the important thing here is that what you do for half an hour at the gym or in your basement is not as important as what you do for the remaining, say, 16 hours that you're awake in the day. And this can be a major factor as to why we see so much variation between people. We have two clients on the same diet and doing the same amount of exercise, but one client is losing a lot of weight, the other client isn't. And often the big difference will be their step counts. One of them is walking 10,000 steps a day, the other one is walking 2,000 steps a day. So clearly there'll be a huge difference between the two. And so sometimes we get very focused on nutrition, on exercise, on what we're doing in the gym, forgetting that your daily activity is a very important part of your overall energy flux in your body. And so, how could you possibly increase the energy flux in your body? Well, there are many ways of doing this. You could have those walking pads, you can have those under table treadmills, mini ellipticals. You can change your habits. If you get a phone call, let's say from a parent, and you know that you have to spend at least half an hour on the phone, well, don't lounge on the sofa while you're on the call. Perhaps consider taking a walk, strolling around while you're on the call. Get a set of headphones and take that call on headphones instead. You can also get into the habit of doing what's called exercise snacks. So, for example, after each meal, you could go for a 10-minute walk, or you could get on a exercise bike or treadmill. This was a really interesting study here, which was done, published in Diabetes Care, randomized controlled crossover study. It's a really high quality study in which the control and the intervention group they crossed over as well. So they did each other's course. One group did a single 30-minute walk per day. The other group did 10 minutes walk after each meal, and then they crossed over, and they saw in the results a 12% reduction in sugar spikes in that group which did a 10-minute walk after meals. And that should be kind of obvious for everyone because you have food, your sugar goes up. If you immediately burn that sugar by walking, then you are naturally going to have lower sugar spikes. And so even spreading the activity out during the day has some additional benefits for energy flux. And of course, I do have my blog called Supplements and Equipment for Muscle Growth. And if you scroll to the very bottom of this, I do have a whole bunch of walkers and things. Many of them I use myself, which you could consider purchasing from Amazon. And nothing really costs more than $200 these days. Like this one I use is quite sturdy. If you look at the pictures, it looks like people are just sitting and doing it, but I actually stand on that and I'm actually getting my steps in by standing and walking on this. And so there are many things you can get these days for, you can see here, $160, which can help you in increasing your step counts. So that was,
Doctor, you say you can stand on that?
yes,
Is that
yes,
stable?
it's very strong, very strong. Yeah,
Do
the
you need
particular
like
one.
some kind of way to keep yourself stable?
Yeah, so it does require some degree of balance, but I can walk on it. Yeah, it's actually very strong.
Yeah.
That
Is
particular
that
one.
electrically powered or is that just use your own energy?
You can plug it in. It's not electrically powered as such, but yes, you do have a dial and you can change the resistance. So you can make it harder and you can make it um, less hard as well. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the Gym Max one. So I have that downstairs, and I find that really, and it's surprisingly strong. It's made of metal, heavy, and surprisingly strong. Yeah, for $160, I didn't expect. I thought it might be plasticky and flimsy, but it's actually quite strong. So with
Oh,
that particular one, I'm quite happy. Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. Let's have a few questions, guys. Any questions about the first step, about increasing step count?
Can you show that again, doctor, which the link you were showing, the
Yeah,
device?
absolutely. I will. I'll share the link with everyone anyway.
Okay. Okay.
It's called Supplements for Exercise, and it is a Gymax one.
Okay.
Gymax. Gymax. Yeah.
Okay.
Dimitro, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is about like we do like I do count steps, I have watch and everything. But question is about like when you walk, would you recommend to walk like at a faster pace or like a different or switching pace or just normal walking counts as well? Like what's the best what's the most I don't know
Yeah, absolutely. So
recommend
that's the next topic we're talking now about now.
oh,
Yes. So
okay.
next we're talking about zone two or steady state cardio, what the definition of that is, and then we're also talking about high intensity. So what constitutes high intensity? So yep, and then how to mix the two. So those are the next three things we're talking about. Yep.
Oh, okay,
A
I'll
great
wait then.
question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, excellent. So let's get to the next topic now. As all of you might have heard of steady state cardio or zone 2 cardio. So what exactly does it mean? Technically, we say it's zone 2 when your heart rate is maintained at a 60 to 70% of your maximal heart rate. There are various ways of calculating your maximal heart rate, but an easy one is 220 minus your age. And so let's say you're 30 years old, 220 minus your age would be 190. And so 60 to 70% of that would be, well, yours math is better than mine. So half of 190, what's half of 190? Just under 95,
85.
95. And then 60 would be about 105, 215, I guess, something like that. Yeah. Dimitro's a lecturer in math, so his math.
Finance, finance.
Yep. So, so yeah, so if you can keep your heart rate at 60 to 70% of your maximal heart rate, that is called zone 2 cardio or steady state cardio. An easier way of finding out if you're there is typically your breathing will be slightly elevated, but you will still be able to maintain a conversation. So you can still talk to another person. And secondly, you don't have to open your mouth to breathe. You can maintain breathing through your nose the entire time. That's called zone 2 cardio. And typically, this will be a brisk walk or maybe a very slow jog. And so, this is not intense. This is something you can maintain for longer periods of time. And the benefit of zone 2 cardio is that, remember, sugar in our body is what we use for quick energy. So when you're sprinting, and because that can often be an anaerobic process, which means it can be a process which has to be done in the absence of oxygen because you're not getting enough oxygen in. You can't get enough oxygen fast enough for sprinting. Only sugar can be burned in the absence of oxygen. Fat needs oxygen for burning. Beta oxidation of fat is a oxidative process. And so fat is slow energy, sugar is fast energy. And when you're doing this kind of gentle exercise, there is actually some benefit because that's primarily burning fat in that kind of zone because that is slow energy flux situation. And so what happens with zone 2 cardio is that the mitochondrial density of your muscles goes up, so you get more muscle. Mitochondria is the energy processing factories in your muscles. You get more density of that. You get better fat oxidation or fat burning capacity. You can actually start growing capillaries or more blood vessels. You develop more metabolic flexibility, which means the transition from sugar burning to fat burning improves. And over time, you can become more fit and your resting heart rate slows down as well. And there are more benefits than just that. Interestingly, there was a study here. As you can see, it was a randomized controlled trial, 120 adults, 12 months. And what they did in the study was one group did a 40-minute brisk walk 3 times a week, while another group just did stretching exercises. So with stretching exercises, you can just say essentially they were not doing any zone 2 cardio. And what did they find? Um, in the group doing just stretching exercises, the brain shrunk over that year. Excuse me. Every single time I'm doing a talk, my wife calls me. She forgets that I work. One second. Without fail, every time I'm doing a coaching class, my wife calls me. He always forgets that I do this. Oh my God. Anyways, let's get back to it. All right. So, shocking findings. Well, just in case you didn't know, once you get to a certain age, every year your brain is shrinking and your memory is getting worse. That's why, you know, we should probably put an age limit to who can become president, particularly president of the United States. Because we have a certain president there whose brain has clearly shrunk a lot. But anyways, uh, so what happened in this study was the group who did not do zone 2 cardio, their brain shrunk as expected. But in contrast, the group who did the zone 2 cardio, they had a 2% increase in their brain volume. So they reversed the brain shrinking. There was also a significant improvement in memory. And they could also see certain chemicals in the brain. There's one called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a brain growth factor. It was also increased when exercise was increased. And so, we know exercise is good for your heart. We know it's good for your metabolic health. We know it's good for fat burning and calorie deficit. Apparently, it's also good for your brain and for your memory. And so that was what you need to do. I recommend you should do at least 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio 3 times a week. So if you remember, I had said to you in the previous section that I'd like you to do resistance training 3 to 4 days a week. I would also like you to do on separate days cardio at least 3 days a week. So it's up to you. If you want to do a full body split, 3 day a week resistance training, which would have to be alternate days because remember, you need to give you each body part, and body part, I mean those four main sections: upper body push, upper body pull, core, and lower legs. You need to give them at least 48 hours of rest. So the 3 days could be Friday, Sunday, and Wednesday, or it could be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 3 days you would need to do resistance training, and at least 3 days, which would be alternating in most cases, you would need to do at least 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio. Now, if you decided to go to gym for 4 days a week, you can do that as well, in which case you wouldn't have any rest days at all. You would be exercising every single day of the week. But of course, if you do 4 days a week, you cannot really design in a 48-hour rest. Therefore, you'd have to do a half body split. So one day you could do more sets, let's say 5 sets at a time of upper body push and lower body. And next day you could do 5 sets each of upper body pull, and core. Remember, and this is what we discussed last week, you need to do at least 9 to 10 sets of one body part per week to get muscle building gains, which means if you do a half body split, then you need to do at least 5 sets because you're only doing that part of your body twice a week. While if you're doing a full body split 3 days a week, you could do 3 sets of each body part, and that would still equate to about 9 sets in the week. So that is what I would recommend for how to design your overall exercise program with resistance training and zone 2 cardio. Let's have some more questions.
Yeah. So for walking, ideally you want to hit 67% intensity. Um, what if you didn't hit that and you start like walking really slow, just for even for a longer period of time? Is there any benefit in that, or is that kind of
Oh, yes, of course. So remember, the first thing we talked about was step counts. So however much you walk, you're increasing your step count. And so that is beneficial, but you won't be going necessarily into that zone 2 stage with those additional benefits with that. So if
so
you're walking,
you're effectively burning fat when you're in that zone. When you're below that zone, you're not burning fat, but or less effectively. Is that what it is?
less effectively, yeah, less
Yeah.
effectively, or you could just be burning sugar at that point of time as well. Yeah. So sugar burning happens at the two ends. It happens more at zone 1 and zone 3, 4, 5. That's where you do more sugar burning, while you do more fat burning in that particular zone 2. That's why there is more scientific interest in zone 2 in steady state cardio, because there's more beta oxidation of fat in that zone. Now, I don't want to overbear that point, because burning fat doesn't necessarily mean that you'll lose weight. And burning fat doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be in a calorie deficit. Okay. The overall weight loss and calorie deficit happens because of your calorie balance, because of energy balance. You could actually burn fat all day and still not lose any fat. You could also burn sugar all day and lose fat. Okay. Because it's the overall calorie balance which has an effect. However, when it comes to certain situations like stubborn fat, like belly fat, and where it also comes to certain situations like what's called metabolic inflexibility, where a person has not had food for 2 hours and starts feeling extremely hungry because craving, because the body is just used to burning sugar. It doesn't want to tap into the fat stores because that metabolic flexibility is compromised. The zone 2 cardio can help with that. And so same applies to intermittent fasting as well. Whether it's fasting, whether it is zone 2 cardio, things which increase fat burn help with metabolic flexibility. And so that might also have then a knock-on effect of making you able to sustain periods of hunger for longer, not getting so hungry so fast, not craving so much, because your body is able to tap into those stores. Otherwise, your body is always stuck in the sugar burning zone. And your stubborn fat, that belly fat and the fat around the organs, it kind of sticks there and doesn't move. And so so metabolic flexibility does have benefits, but it's not the be all and end all. Ultimately, weight loss and gain happens because of the overall energy flux. Yeah, that's a good question. Al, do you have a question? Or maybe you want to make a comment?
Yes, I will ask you a question. This is about walking exercises. I don't know if this is new or old or new or old. I think it comes from Japan. Walking 5 minutes fast and 5 minutes slow and alternate that. Would this be of any benefit to do that, let's say for half an hour?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's exactly what we're talking about next section. So next we're talking about high intensity training and how to combine high intensity with your zone 2. So yeah, excellent. Yeah,
One more quick
Japanese
question.
are usually right with almost everything. I've got to say, yeah.
Yes. I just thought about it and then maybe I would forget. But last question, like all these exercises you are showing us, that's great. but it's very hard to comprehend if you don't have like personal trainer. It would help to have someone to show me, let's say, for a while, maybe few months, and then it will be automatic. What do you think? Is that a good idea to do it that way, or with somebody who knows,
Yeah,
friends?
absolutely. So that's exactly what a personal trainer is for. That's exactly what like a physio can help you with, or someone doing any kind of cardiac rehab, or a personal trainer. They can all help you with this kind of thing. Particularly if you have a history of any kind of heart conditions, then you probably do need more guidance as you do this. But for someone like me, if I have a smartwatch on me and I'm doing a brisk walk and I can see that my heart rate is at 110 per minute, I know I'm in a zone two. Also, I can tell that I am a bit out of breath, but I can still breathe through my nose and I can still talk to the person who's next to me. That means I'm in a zone two. As soon as I cannot talk anymore and I have to open my mouth to breathe, I'm getting into zone three. So you don't necessarily need a personal trainer to tell you. Like I said, 220 minus your age is your maximal heart rate. 60 to 70% of your maximal heart rate is your zone 2 rate. You can also go by the fact that you're able to keep your conversation going and you're able to nose breathe. These are all markers that you're in zone 2. So you can do this without a personal trainer, but if you like guidance, then of course you can use a trainer as well. Yeah. Great, good bunch of questions. Japanese are right on so many other things as well. They have a lot of very good philosophies. Like you have the blue zones, the Okinawans. You can see how they eat. They eat a lot of fish and seafood and real foods, whole foods. Also, Okinawans, they have this philosophy that they don't stuff themselves. They have this belief that you should feel, I think it's about 60 to 70% full, and that's when you should stop eating. That's also this Japanese kind of philosophy about eating. So yeah, and I'll just mention that they do a fast walk and then slow walk, fast walk, slow walk. That's so smart because that's combining high intensity with zone two. So so yeah, a lot of things that Japanese do are actually really good. So let's get back to the talk. Next, we talk about high intensity. So what's high intensity exercise? The main thing you're trying to do is increase the ceiling of your exercise or capacity. Often we hear the word VO2 max being thrown about. VO2 max is velocity of oxygen maximum that you can shift in a minute through your lungs. It's a measure of aerobic capacity. And so when you put more strain on the system, what happens? You increase your VO2 max, your maximum oxygen utilization, increase your anaerobic capacity as well, because a lot of the sugar burning which happens when you are doing high intensity exercise is happening in the absence of oxygen. And so that's called anaerobic capacity. One of the byproducts of burning sugar and fat is the production of lactic acid. That's what gives you the fatigue and the burning sensation you get in your muscles. And you can become more tolerant to that. When you do high intensity exercise, you produce more mitochondria, your high output energy systems improve. This was a study done by Martin Gibala and team. Dr. Gibala is based out of McMaster University. And last week I was quoting Dr. Stuart Phillips, who's also based out of McMaster. So these are major contributing scientists in the field. 6 week, 2 to 6 week study, and what they did was they compared sprint interval cycling with just moderate continuous endurance cycling. And what did they see? What they saw was a similar improvement in mitochondrial enzyme activity, improvement in insulin sensitivity, so sugar sensitivity, better utilization of oxygen by the muscles. But this is where the difference is. HIT achieved these adaptations in far less time. So that's the main difference between high intensity and traditional endurance. When you do it with high intensity, then you just get the same effects, but in a faster period of time. So those metabolic adaptations happen much faster. So how could you combine zone 2 and high intensity? First, let's look at this really, really interesting study. So I want you to pay close attention to this study because it's really informative. It was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, randomized control trial, 112 women. They were divided into three groups with an equal calorie deficit. One group had diet only, calorie deficit. Second had diet with moderate cardio, and the third group had diet with vigorous cardio. But remember, all of them had the same calorie deficit. So even with the cardio and vigorous cardio, they all had the same calorie deficit. Duration was 20 weeks. What happened? Well, if you have the same calorie deficit, you'll get the same amount of weight loss. So, as expected, they all had similar weight loss. However, this is where the difference shows. In visceral fat, and visceral fat, remember, is that dangerous belly fat around the organs, in the liver, in the pancreas, what causes prediabetes, diabetes, fatty liver, polycystic ovaries, all the inflammatory conditions we talk about. Visceral fat loss was lowest in just the calorie deficit. There was a greater reduction in visceral fat loss with diet and cardio, and the greatest reduction in visceral fat, diet and vigorous cardio. And so, interestingly, despite the same calorie deficit, those people doing the high intensity cardio had the greatest amount of belly fat loss. And why would that be? Well, you can read the article in more detail, but the reason for that is considered to be the metabolic adaptations which take place. When you do high intensity cardio, at that point of time, you secrete certain hormones which are your flight and fright hormones, epinephrine, adrenaline, and these essentially shake up and loosen up the belly fat and visceral fat that's lying there and make it more likely to get burnt off. While that same effect doesn't happen with calorie deficit or calorie deficit with steady cardio alone. And so it's almost like you're shaking up the whole system, and that stubborn fat is getting dislodged. That's what happens with the more high intensity exercise. And certainly in certain groups, I'm South Asian, and I see particularly in South Asians, for example, we often have a lot of skinny fat situation in South Asians. And that's because, we might as well get into a calorie deficit. A lot of people are vegetarian. It's fairly easy to go into a calorie deficit, but because they're not very active, and even if they're active, they just go for a walk. They don't actually do a lot of high intensity stuff. You'll see a lot of people with more belly fat, but not being particularly overweight. And that still unfortunately leads them to become diabetic, etc. And so high intensity exercise is important. So let's have a few more questions. Maybe my fellow South Asian, Saroj, she might have a question for us. Tom, you've unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. So is weight training considered high intensity?
No, so weight training I would consider completely separate. High intensity is when you're sprinting as fast as you can run, when you're cycling as fast as you can bike, when you're doing the elliptical as hard as you can. And so it's something that you can only sustain for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, maximum 30 seconds at a time, depending on your fitness. So you're doing it at absolute maximal capacity.
So it's a cardio thing?
A cardio thing, yes. So let's say you're riding your bike.
The reason I asked that question is because when you're doing weight training, let's say you're doing something heavy, it's very intense, and I can feel my heart rate going up very quickly. Also, it's very hard to sustain that continuously. So but that's not the same thing as what you're
No.
talking about.
Your heart rate might be going up, but it wouldn't be going up to close to your maximal heart rate. So high intensity is zone 5 cardio, which is getting close to your maximal heart rate. So let's say if you're 40 years old, that would be 220 minus 40, which is 180. So you need to be maintaining a 180 heart rate for 15, 20, 30 seconds. So that wouldn't happen with weight training. Most of that fatigue in weight training is because of the muscles not being able to hold on to the weight rather than your heart rate being that fast for such a prolonged period of time. So weight training I would keep separate. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's have some more questions.
Doctor, stationary bicycles are good for high rate. Would you agree? Stationary bike?
Absolutely. So yeah, stationary bike is good for your for both for doing a steady state and also just then cycling, let's say for 10 seconds for as fast as you can, or for 20 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever you can manage. Now, for someone like you, Al, I know that you have some history medically. You have to be very careful with in your situation,
Right,
and
right.
just to start very slowly with that. Yeah, but yeah, it is something which is definitely very useful, a stationary bike. Dimitro, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a similar question about rowing machines. They're like partly resistance, partly like kind of aerobics, partly. So would you recommend? And then this another question is like we do like long walks, let's say we walk for 10 kilometers per day, twice a day, like 5 and 5, for example. And then on the weekends we can go like for 10. Uh, would you recommend, I don't know, adding a little bit of running in the middle, or because it's like when we come back home, then my legs falling off so normally, and yeah, it's not easy, but I don't know, is this like, or maybe it's better just to have a shorter but more intense like cardio, more intense walks, let's say 5 kilometers,
Yeah,
or
I
uh,
completely agree.
zone two.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with both things, Dimitro. So with the rowing, the whole demarcation between resistance training and cardio is a bit arbitrary, as you can probably tell. If you're doing very low weights and you're doing fast reps, that turns into more or less a cardio. So if you're doing a rowing machine on just 10 pounds, since we're doing very fast reps of a lightweight, that's more or less cardio. And the same applies to cardio as well. If you're running long, like if you're cycling for an hour, that's a lot of resistance training for your legs, for your thigh muscles and your hamstrings. So the the differentiation is kind of arbitrary, but still useful because the progressive overload we're trying to install into resistance training regime versus the progressive overload we're trying to install into cardio is different. And so it is still useful, although it is arbitrary. And so I do agree with you that if you're doing a long walk, trying to break it up with something it would be useful. You know, uh, Perhaps not walk as long, walk a bit less. But in the middle, if you have a game of soccer on the side, you carry a soccer ball with you, or if you're South Asian, you carry something else, like I don't know, a cricket ball or something, and you start playing some sports, a volleyball or something, which then will give you some more intensity for a period of time, or you just do some sprints or whatever, or carry a bike with you in the car and then do some bike riding. Just mixing it in so that your heart rate can hit different kinds of zones does have additional benefit. And as we saw with that study with Dr. Gabala from McMaster, the end results are actually similar for both, but when you mix in the high intensity, you get those results faster. Those results come faster, and so there is that benefit. Yeah. Sarah, you have a question.
I have a question, Doc. Is it true that actual running is better compared to treadmill, or the effect is just the same?
It is the same, Sarah. Running on a treadmill is the same as running outdoors. I personally enjoy outdoors much more because I find enclosed spaces very boring. And so when I go for a run personally, I go outdoors. But physiologically, it's the same. The only additional benefit is fresh air when you're outside. and a bit of psychological benefit. You get to see your neighbors, you get to see people walking the dog and all that. And psychologically, it's probably a bit better than staring at a wall, but physiologically, there isn't that much difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's do the next section now, which is very important, which is how we combine all of these things now. So next is how do we combine zone 2 cardio, steady state cardio with high intensity? So there are various ways in which you can combine these things. And I'm going to give you 4 examples of how you can do this. And it's really up to you how you want to do it. It's up to your own preference. It's also up to your own fitness. I would say that intensity duration, high intensity duration could be anywhere from 10 seconds to 30 seconds. If you can do it for longer than 30 seconds, it's probably not high intensity enough. Although, I mean, you could be extremely fit, and that's maybe you can sustain 180 heart rate for over 30 seconds. But for most people like you and me, I think 30 seconds is really the maximum. Anything between 10 seconds to 30 seconds of high intensity is appropriate. And so, one way of adding high intensity into your zone 2 cardio, and zone 2 cardio, of course, remember, could be anything. It could be a brisk walk, it could be elliptical, exercise bike, outdoor biking, a steady jog. It could be any of those things. What you're going to do is insert bursts 10 to 30 seconds of full speed. And you could do this every 3 to 5 minutes. You could, and then you do it for 10 to 30 seconds, and then you get back to zone 2. And then after 3 to 5 minutes again, you do 10 to 30 seconds more, and then you get back to zone 2. For example, if you had a 30-minute bike ride, doing a 20-second sprint every 5 minutes, or a 10-second sprint, or a 30-second sprint, depends on your fitness. And so that's one way of inserting high intensity into zone 2, just doing it at regular intervals during that exercise. That's number one. The other way of doing it could be just loading it at the end. So, for example, if you are doing something for 30 minutes or 20 minutes, what you could do is for the final 3 to 5 minutes, you could add in these 15-second sprints and 45-second ease off. 15-second sprint, 45-second ease off. So if you're looking at a clock, as soon as it hits zero, you go full speed for 15 seconds. At 15, you slow down until the next zero, and then you go fast again and slow down. And you could do this for the last 3 to 5 minutes of whatever you're doing. And so you could do steady state for a continuous period of time, and then just add in these high intensity bouts for the last 3 to 5 minutes. One more way of doing this is not actually even doing it for 3 to 5 minutes, but doing just one last sustained push at the very end. So, for example, if you're running or let's say jogging or doing elliptical or incline walk, you could just do a as hard as you can push for just the last 20 to 60 seconds of that exercise. And that will just, it's kind of similar to what you would do with resistance training, where you don't have to go to failure every set, but for the last set or 2 sets, you may want to go to failure to just get that extra push. And that's another way of doing it. And finally, this is what I like to do actually, because I find cardio extremely boring. I mean, I'm happy to play tennis for as long as you'd ask me to, but if you ask me to stare at a wall in a gym on a bike, I just find that extremely boring. So I tend to do exercise snacks. So typically I'll do 10 minutes of elliptical in the morning on a cardio day, then I'll do 10 minutes of exercise bike in the afternoon, and then I might do a jog outside of in the evening. And at the end of each of those short sessions, I would just do a 20 to 30-second all-out effort. And that would be just my version of adding in high intensity into those exercise cardio snacks. And so these are all the ways that you can add in high intensity. And the benefits you get are it raises your aerobic ceiling, VO2 max, accelerates mitochondrial uh, multiplication, more metabolic adaptation, and enhances reduction of visceral fat, as we saw in that study. Of course, there are many sports which mirror this kind of exercise: tennis, squash, badminton, most racket sports, soccer, basketball, swimming, rowing, MMA. So these are all uh, equivalent to do this kind of exercise. And if you were to do an hour of that, I would say your cardio is done for the day. That's good enough. And I have put in my own cardio routine there as well. And yeah, this is what I do. I usually do 10 minutes morning, 10 minutes afternoon, 10 minutes evening because I just find cardio extremely boring. I like to mix up different exercises, elliptical, exercise bike, and run. And on a day that I'm playing singles tennis for an hour or so, I consider my cardio done. I don't do any extra exercise on those days. And at the end, usually I will either do, depending on what I'm doing, biking, elliptical, or jog, I will either speed up at the very end for 30 seconds, or if I'm on something like an elliptical, I might also do it 15-second spikes of high intensity for for the last 3 minutes or so. So when the clock hits zero, high intensity till 15 seconds, then 45 seconds of back to zone two, and then again another 15 seconds. And I would do it like that often for the last 3 to 5 minutes of the exercise. Next, we'll talk about level 5, which is how to fit this in with the overall calorie cycling. But let's first have a few more questions. Even if you're having any ideas or plans of what exercise you're going to start doing, then you can just share those, like what you're thinking. Dimitra?
Well, I mean, I actually like um, I like treadmills because I can watch things on them or I can listen to books, and that helps me just just run, especially if it's a good book. I can't stop running. I'm just if I get really in the book, yeah, it's really helpful. I think those kind of activities are just watching something interesting on your telephone while running. I cannot do that while when I'm outside, but actually treadmill is much better because it's very like kind of controlled environment, and yeah, I'm just watching my football or whatever and just doing my thing. So my brain is somewhere else. But it's very boring. Like that's why I can't stay swimming because swimming is very boring.
You can
I
you
can't, I
definitely
can't
can watch
listen to anything
soccer
or watch
while
anything.
swimming,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Do you have any questions from like anyone who hasn't contributed yet, like Tamikia or Saroj or anyone?
Yeah, I just have to add something, that I'm always big fan of doing. I'm not doing it. My routine is not still not back. We started walking with weather getting better, so that's my first step towards getting back to shape again. So first thing is walk, and then I'm always big fan of doing Surya Namaskar or sun salutation because that touches your every part of the body or yoga posture. So I don't think we talked about it, but what's your opinion on sun salutation?
I mean, there are definitely psychological benefits. If you do a bit of sun gazing in the morning, it resets your hormones and you'll sleep better probably at night as well. But if you saw that study comparing high intensity exercise with stretches,
Mm,
and stretches would be Surya Namaskar is a form of like stretching.
mm.
The people who did the stretches, their brain shrunk 2% over the year, and people who did high intensity exercise, their brain grew by 2%. So, and the
Oh.
memory improved as well. So, you know, I know we have our cultural kind of issue, preferences as well. And there is this mythological kind of plus for Surya Namaskar and everything. But at the end of the day, one of the reasons that South Asians, particularly, we tend to suffer from metabolic disease more and heart disease more and diabetes and belly fat is also because there isn't much of a culture of high intensity exercise. We
Mhm,
don't like getting sweaty. We like to stay in the
mhm,
shade. We like to take it easy and live in the comfort zone. And that
mhm,
comfort zone is what becomes problematic health wise. Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
So I think that awareness is important as well. Yeah. So the best thing is we all start at the separate levels, but just trying to push yourself slowly, doing a progressive overload. Just like we talked about progressive overload for resistance training last week, where we talked about just don't just keep pushing lifting those pink weights the whole time. Uh, Keep a track of how much weight you're lifting, how many sets you're doing, how many reps you're doing, and then the week after increase the reps maybe by 2 reps. The week after that, increase it again. If you're within a 6 to 12 hypertrophy range, once you get to 12 reps, increase the weight and go back down to 6 reps, but keep a note of it in a log. Do some progressive overload. And the same applies to cardio as well. If you're doing, let's say, a 10-minute elliptical and or incline walk, for example, and then you are doing, let's say, a 10-second high intensity burst for the last 3 minutes. So 10 seconds of high intensity and then 50 seconds of zone 2, 10 seconds of high intensity, 50 seconds of zone 2, and you do it for the last three. After you've done that for a week or 2 weeks and you're getting more and more comfortable doing it, then move on from 10-second bursts to 15-second bursts. And or you can also increase from three last 3 minutes, you can do it for the last 5 minutes or 4 minutes, four bursts. Or you could increase the incline of your walker. So there are so many ways in which we can introduce some progressive overload, which means do something for a period of time for 1 or 2 weeks. It doesn't matter where you start from. Do something for a period of time and then devise a way of increasing it, cranking it up slightly. So we do all have to push ourselves slightly to just improve our heart fitness and our muscle fitness. Yeah. Great. Let's move on. We have 6 minutes left. Let's do the last section now, and we'll have a few questions at the very end. But the last section here is essentially just a repetition of what we've talked about in the past, which is calorie cycling for body recomposition. I do have more blogs where I discuss this in more detail. Essentially, I have 3 to 4 days a week where I do resistance training. I don't mix up my cardio and resistance training. I keep it separate. On those days, my priority is building muscle, anabolism, and my nutrition will be matching that. Often I'll have higher protein intake, 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein intake, probably higher calories as well. Because remember, to build muscle, your body needs protein, it needs stimulus, which is exercise, and it also needs calories. So you can't really be in a chronic calorie deficit and expect to gain muscle by doing that. That's why I recommend calorie cycling. Also, another benefit of calorie cycling is that you don't tank your metabolism. If you keep at a low calories the whole time, your metabolism eventually slows down to those low calories. But if you can mix around your calories a bit, and for this, you do need to be tracking your calories on one of those apps, really easy picture taking apps, which are, you can just sign up for a free version. Snap Calorie, Cal AI, Macro AI, and I do have those on these blogs here. You can have a look at. If you do resistance training 3 days a week, you can do a full body split, provided you give each muscle group 48 hours rest. The muscle groups are upper body push, upper body pull, core, and legs. So, for example, if you do 3 days a week full body split, you could do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Remember, you need to do at least 9 sets per week. So you could do 3 sets of each body part, which would be a total of 12 sets, 3 days a week. That would be a resistance training. If you wanted to do it 4 days a week, you could, but then you would have to do a half body split, something like upper body push and lower body one day, upper body pull and core the next day. Of course, to get the 9 to 10 sets, you would need to then do 5 sets on those days of the half body split. And then the remaining 3 days, I recommend you should dedicate to cardio. On cardio, I'm more worried or concerned or interested in lower calories, more fiber, because these are my fat burning days. Remember, fiber is what makes you not absorb cholesterol, not absorb sugar, and also not absorb calories. Also, because often you'll be alternating this with resistance training, you need more recovery, so more plant polyphenols. These are all those colors that you see in the fruits and vegetables. So, more vegetables, more fruits, more fiber, fewer calories. Protein, personally, I might even be at half of what I am on the resistance training days. I might even be at zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram per day on those days. And so I divide my week into resistance training days and cardio days. And so the final takeaway is remember to focus on your step counts, gradually increase those. What you do 16 hours in a day has more impact than what you do just half an hour. Introduce some zone 2. I recommend at least 30 minutes for 3 days a week. You can do this in the form of exercise snacks, so 10 minutes 3 times a week, or you could do it just in one go, 30 minutes. Then add in some high intensity into this to accelerate the process. Hybrid training is where you combine the two. If you play sports which are high intensity, that kind of mimics this process as well. And then remember to combine your nutrition, which is your calorie intake, protein intake, fiber intake, polyphenol intake, with the type of day that you're having. And you would need to do some degree of tracking for that. And so once you do this properly, you will be able to achieve body recomposition, which means gaining muscle, losing belly fat, improving metabolic health, improving cardiovascular health in the long term. So that is the talk for today. And we only have 1 minute, so we only have one more question. Let's have one question. And remember to check out my blog about the supplements for exercise. That blog will be on the reminders as well.
So, doctor, when it comes to running, doesn't matter where, that would be considered more of a high impact exercise, maybe not the best for the knees, especially when people are older. Is that the case? As
Yeah.
opposed to stationary bike, where you, as you said, you exercise your heart rate, your legs, and you're sitting. So basically, you are not very heavy on your knees.
Yeah, right? Definitely. There's definite benefits of non-impact exercises for less pressure in the knees and less arthritis. Yeah, 100%. I think was it Saroj or someone? Someone was saying something as well. Was it Tamiki?
I was just saying, it's tomorrow's session is same on this one, right? So we'll have a new topic next week.
That's correct. Everyone is expected to join only once.
Yeah.
Once a week. That's right. Just once a week. I actually do the same talk 5 times a week. So I'm a bit like a Kumon instructor or something like that. Yeah.
No, but you will have different questions. You will have different people.
Oh
so
yes. Oh, every group is so different.
Makes it unique,
It's unbelievable how different each group is. It is
I
so
think
much
we have
fun.
just 2 sessions remaining for this set, then we'll have next one, right? Or is it one session for this one, the 8 weeks?
No, the sessions, I have a total of 16 chapters. So
16.
as long as you stay for at least 16 weeks, you will probably get a feel of the whole thing. But there is no time limit as to how long you have to stay for. You can stay for as long as you want. Yeah. Because a
Okay.
lot of people, by the time you come back to the first chapter you did 16 weeks ago, you've literally forgotten what we discussed 16 weeks ago. So you can stay longer if you like as well. But the program is divided into 16 chapters. Yes. Yeah. Great. Next time we'll be going back on exercise and we'll be focusing more on supplements and we'll be focusing more on bone strength and supplements. So that's what we'll
Yeah.
talk about next week. Yeah.
Yeah, because I missed some of them, so that is the reason I was asking, like, when
As
are
long
the
as you
next
stay for
one?
16 weeks, Saroj, you'll get the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
All right. Good to see everyone. Take care. Okay.
Thank
Yeah. Have a
you.
great day. Thank you very much.
Bye.